Okay guys, so when we was on tour we had to work with the Afghan National Army. Now on paper they were allies, you know, they knew the ground, they knew the people, they knew the culture, and they just knew things that we didn't. But in reality, when we really did work with them, it was kind of like having a second enemy. Now, there's two parts to this. The first part is how easily the Taliban could infiltrate into the Afghan National Army or the Afghan National Police. Now, just for some numbers, 2012 alone, there was over 45 green on blue attacks, and that accounted for 10 to 15% of coalition forces deaths. So that's not just our British troops, that's American troops and all the other troops that were in Afghan. Now, when we was out there, we was partnered with them on operations. So if we went on like a search operation, for example, it would be like a platoon of our company, and then there would be like a section, so seven men or something like this from the Afghan National Army. But there was also guys that got delegated to go and training roles. So there's men that went out and trained these guys for their whole operational tour. Now I was lucky enough; I didn't have to spend too much time with them. We did go on operations with them when we went on like search patrols or search ops, for example. But luckily enough, I never had to spend too much time with them. I only brushed shoulders with them. But when you are on patrol with them, you kind of get this feeling of, obviously if you don't trust somebody and there's been that many shootings or that many attacks on green on blue attacks, then you get this feeling of like, you never really trust any of them, and you're looking at them wondering which one's the dodgy one that's going to try and put a round in your back. But it's more so when you go firm inside a compound. So when we was on operations and we went firm inside a compound, and obviously when you go inside a compound, you haven't got that much area to move around in. So we go firm on one side and line up against the wall, you know, kit down, sit on your kit, and then they would go be down one side. And because we're so close, it would only take one spray of their AK, and that would be, you know, multiple blokes done, you know. But it wasn't just that came across. When you're working with them, obviously they're not trained like we are, so their drills aren't obviously up to the standards that ours are. So when we was in engagement, when we was over in A Company, when JB shot just near my ear, we're engaging over the top of the sandbags, and there's one of them, like, you know, led down on the floor just next to us, and rather than be engaging as you should be, he's led on the floor just spraying over the top of the sandbags. And all it takes is one rogue round to hit one of you, you know, and then that's, again, just another unnecessary injury. Now, that was that, you know, that was going on patrol, and that was dealing with that. Now, as I say, I didn't have to deal with that, but I know a lot of guys did have to deal with that, and a lot of guys obviously ended up experiencing serious situations. But the other side to this is something that everybody experiences, and it has nothing to do with firefights, it has nothing to do with going on patrols, it has nothing to do with the Taliban. And it's to do with an old tradition. Now, you have to battle this internal conflict throughout the whole of the tour, and every man that deployed onto the ground experienced this. So their religious days out there are Friday, which means that Thursdays are meant for celebrations, and by celebrations, weddings, birthdays, anything like this. Now this tradition is called, excuse me, I have my pronunciation, is called Bachi Bazi, B-A-C-H-I-B-A-Z-I, and the translation for that is actually boy play. Now this is where the saying comes from, Man Love Thursdays. In the military, we always joke about Man Love Thursdays, but as I say, we have that really dark humour, but this is the part of dark humour that people mention Man Love Thursdays, but the joke goes no further. There's kind of just that like awkward laughter, and then that's it. But yeah, as I say, believe it or not, this isn't actually from the Taliban. The Taliban banned this when they were in control. This is run by local commanders or local authorities within these small areas. So when they have these celebrations on Thursday nights and Baki Bazi celebrations, they take advantage of their junior ranks and take advantage sexually, obviously. And that will be the higher ranks and the local authorities of higher authority that will do so. Now, that's one part of it, but the worst part of it is they will also get the local little boys, any of the little boys that are maybe like 4 or 5 plus years old, and they dress them up and they paint their nails, and the same shitty process happens. Now, guys witness this on different levels, you know. You don't really see, obviously, the next day you obviously see the little boys, and that's probably the hardest part, where you have this internal conflict where you just, you know, it turns your stomach and it just makes your heart turn, you know, it breaks your heart to see it. But guys do witness it on different levels, and the way they see it is not on patrol. So there'll be, maybe for example, the ANA, Afghan National Army, or the police, they will have a compound that's a little bit further away from ours, and obviously we have sentries out, so guys that have to sit on stag and they'll have to look out at security, for example. So that might just happen to be in their arcs. Now, it wasn't always, you know, done in eyesight, but there was times when it was done in eyesight, and that would normally be something that's been arranged simply to do inside of one of our guys, and that would be to try and damage relationships between our forces and either the Afghan National Army, or maybe between us and the locals. Now, it's a terrible thing to talk about, and it's really hard to say out loud. It's something that we don't really talk about to each other, and we definitely don't talk about it to our loved ones, and you can understand why. Now, a lot of guys did struggle with this when they got back from tour, especially those that had kids. Some guys really did struggle, like being around their children, let alone when they struggled, like obviously being out there. And it's understandable. And one thing we also need to understand around this kind of thing is if there are guys out there that are struggling with this kind of thing, or you feel like you do still hold on to that, we struggle to have conversations with our loved ones as it is. You know, we can't expect them to have the tools around the conversations normally what we had out there when it comes to things like standing on IEDs or getting in contact. You know, we don't have the tools to be able to have those kind of conversations, let alone these kind of conversations. So if you are struggling with this kind of conversation, it's most definitely okay to go and see somebody, regardless of what you're struggling with. And we always say about, like, personally for me, it was always like poisonous words, paint poisonous pictures, you know. So that's why I'd never have this conversation with any of my loved ones. I'd never tell them any of this. Obviously they're hearing it now, but it's different because I'm not seeing their reaction. But there's professionals out there that are able to listen to you, and they can have these conversations. And then not only can they have these conversations, they've also got the tools to help you deal with whatever kind of thoughts or whatever way you'll remember in these situations. But yeah, it was a different one to have this one, and just wanted to speak about it just because it's one of the most terrible parts of the tour, and it's something that nobody really expects guys to struggle with, you know. But yeah, if you are struggling, go see somebody and get the help you deserve. You don't need to be carrying around any more shit that you need than we already do. Right, I'll see you next week, guys.